Hello and welcome to Kurly Meets. Today we have Turakhia. He's the Birmingham Hub Manager for the National Literacy Trust.
Hi, how's it going?
Good to
Good to see you, man.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So, Kyle, first question I'd like to ask you. Does your name have a meaning?
I don't know the meaning. It's an Indian name.
It's an Indian name.
So my heritage is from Gujarat. So my grandfather was fully Indian and lived in Mumbai. But he controversially married an English woman in the 50s. He was quite a wealthy Indian man, traveling salesman, brought this woman home. They tried to pay her to go back, but she lived in India for 40 years, you know, and quite an amazing story. And then my dad came over here when he was 16. Again, married an English woman. So, so I'm a quarter Indian, but feel quite connected to the heritage as well.
And what a story.
Yeah.
Wow, that's like a party.
Yeah, we could do we could talk for hours about about that bit.
I mean, and there's important things about telling stories, isn't there? You know, like you mentioned heritage, and it's an important thing resonating with your name.
That's true.
And your name is like your most important thing that you carry.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
When connotations are put to your name, you know, it means a lot. It's branding in a way.
Yeah.
You know, what do you think of Kyle, you know, when Kyle's not here?
Yeah, that's true.
What do you think of Kurly when Kurly's not here?
And the surname in particular, isn't it? It's like it's a history. It carries a history with it. So it's great that you carry it everywhere, you know.
Yeah. So what are some of the key lessons that you are pertinent to you, do you feel, on your journey from that story of your grandparents?
Oh, from my grandparents. Oh wow. Yeah, it's an interesting one. There's a lot of grief there because I never really met my grandfather, and sometimes I think about that because, you know, he would have been a real connection to Indian heritage just through, you know, and so my life was radically changed by him dying when I was young. But then as I've got older, I've sort of, my dad's very connected to that heritage. He often sort of plays his dad, you know, like as in he pretends to be him. So I sort of know him through that character that he does.
That's amazing.
And yeah, I think that he was a very sort of joyful guy, almost a bit hedonistic. So everyone I meet who knew him says, "Oh, I had the best night of my life," you know.
Oh wow! Yeah.
You know, we drank so much, we did this, we did that. He can dance like anything. So when I think about that, I just sort of, it's trying to remind me to sort of let yourself loose a bit sometimes. That's what he represents for me. And I'm quite big on honouring your grandparents. You know, I have a picture on my wall. They all have sort of different values they represent for me.
Values.
You know,
personified.
Personified, exactly. I think that's a useful way to do it, is to look at a person and say, oh, I want to be more like this person today. Or if you've got a problem, to say, which of my grandparents
am I gonna
I'm gonna channel today?
Like a utility belt. Qualities to get you through.
And those values come to you in stories, as you say. You know, you hear these stories over the years, so you learn those values through them, and that's why I think it's more powerful to look at the person, because you know them really well.
Yeah, wow. So stories are really important fundamentally, because they inform how to live your best life, I guess.
I think that's true. Yeah.
To overcome challenges.
To be empathetic, to understand what it's like for other people. Stories are the best way to get to know someone really, really quickly. Just get them to tell a story.
And tone matters, doesn't it? Like hearing the accents, like, so telling the story, but hearing the accents, and the tonality of.
That's so true.
It's there was an interesting study being done where they looked at communication, and then they measured how much of communication is the word, how much is the tone, how the word is said, and the rest is body language.
Wow.
So I ask questions like when I do an assembly, how many of you think words amount to this much percentage? Quite a lot of hands go up for the high percentage, but actually it only amounts to 7% apparently.
Wow.
The word, how the word is said, is 38%.
Yes.
And then the rest is 55%.
Wow.
But again, how a word is said really matters.
Yeah,
you know?
definitely.
So, and I think a big part of life is to not only to be understood, but if you can be less misunderstood, I think less challenges come your way.
Yeah, definitely.
Less friction. So if you can communicate a bit more better,
yes,
your life tends to be.
Yeah.
It can be improved, I think.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
How many arguments start from a misunderstanding?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
that can really set you off on a different trajectory. Then.
Yeah, you're so right.
But your origin story in your arts, then, like you're the hub manager for the National Literacy Trust.
Yeah,
that's a big deal.
Yeah, well, that's a good segue actually, because that's a really big part of what we do. So I work for the National Literacy Trust, and so it's specifically I'm the Birmingham hub manager. The charity generally is working nationally to try and raise literacy levels, change life stories. Because we know that literacy is one of the biggest levers to success in life in all kinds of ways: health, well-being, employability, education, all those things. But specifically, I'm the Birmingham manager, so my job is to try and raise reading, writing, speaking and listening levels all over the city to engage local people with these things.
Fantastic.
And what you're saying about, I really like that, what you're saying about communication being so crucial, because, we sometimes think of reading, writing as things that you sort of do alone in your room. When I get in front of a group of young people, I always like to say, stories and literacy, reading, writing, all these things, they connect us. They're connectors. They're not individual things. They're how you connect to the world.
Absolutely.
So that's why it's so fundamental to all these things.
And what's interesting about that as well is the era in which you grow up matters, because words have different meanings depending on the era. I'm from the era where bad meant good as a kid. And the adults not getting it because they weren't caught up. So I'm trying to keep up with the kids now. I'm trying to know what riz means. I know it means charisma. Who's got the riz? Who's got the riz? Who's got the riz? Charisma. I'm going to turn it into something. Man. So charisma. But it's a great word, man. Riz. Who's got the, but if you don't know what it means, like, kind of out of the loop a bit.
Exactly. And then you might misinterpret it, or you might absolutely.
But you're part of, again, that communication, understanding what words mean during a particular era. Keeps your communication clearer. So
absolutely.
Less misunderstandings. But
I avoided your question. All right, I went a different route.
Brilliant.
The question was how I got into it. So I've always been a big reader. I've always been academically, that's always been my sort of thing, English. So I just had this dream. I grew up in Leicester.
Right, Leicester.
And had this dream of going to Oxford or Cambridge. So I just really worked at that for a long time, and then got a place to study English at Cambridge.
Nice.
And then from there, was just very passionate about kind of sharing this love of reading and writing that had given so much to me. So I trained as a secondary teacher.
Right.
With a program called Teach First.
Teach First.
Do you know Teach First?
Not familiar.
So it's a big thing now. It's one of the main routes into training as a teacher, but they're trying to... exactly.
Part of that
but they're trying to end educational inequality. So they basically take graduates and send them to the schools nationwide where they're most needed.
Wow.
So I was sent to Colchester in Essex, which was quite a long way from home, and I was quite young as well. So it was a challenging but immensely rewarding couple of years. Sort of a real grounding in education. And putting your money where your mouth is, I suppose, as I had a lot of reasons personally as to why books were valuable to me. But none of those were relevant, really. Or it took me a while to work out where the connection point was with the young people that were in front of me.
Right.
And then after that, I got the job for the National Literacy Trust. I was first of all working, they were running a program for young people who'd been excluded from school. So kicked out of school. And I had some experience of that from the school in Colchester of kids moving in and out of mainstream education. Exactly. So led the design of a project for that. It's called Game Changers. I'm very proud of it. It was, and it's still running. It's a great project. And then life took me back to the Midlands, took me to Birmingham, and as chance would have it, the Birmingham role came up, and here we are.
Amazing.
So that's it in a few words.
Wow, I mean, there's a lot going on there about your character. It speaks to, call to action.
Call to action.
You know, when you said, you know, you had to get repositioned to one part of the country to the other, from Leicester to where you was located. Like you said, man, that's a big choice. It's far away from home, but there's that call to action. Sounds like you're very passionate about making a difference.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And I love, as you've said, I love sort of communicating. I think if there's something I'm good at, it's breaking things down in trying to make it in a clear way. And that's what I really loved about teaching, is that you can take something vast like a novel and say, well, how am I going to break this down in a way that it's going to communicate why it's
digestible,
why it's good.
How are they going to eat this up?
Exactly. So I love that. But I'm a passionate sort of creative as well. And I think that's what's been nice about my new role. I'd never sort of expected to come into a kind of more community engagement role, really, because most of what I do in Birmingham is working with different community organisations, arts organisations, sports, faith. But what's nice is that I still get to do the education stuff, but I also have I'm plugged into lots of different creative communities, and that's great as well.
I think it's great because it helps to up your practice, doesn't it, when you're in a network of other people in the sector?
Yes.
Different approaches to the problem at hand.
Yeah.
You know, and we're problem solvers, and creativity is a big part of being able to problem solve, isn't it, I think?
And we can get obsessed with our own ideas sometimes, you know, sometimes rightly, but the minute you're plugged in, you can always be testing these ideas. Like, what do you think of this? How and then change them, and you're never sort of spending too much time in your room developing this grand plan that's going to fall flat the minute it meets the community. You know,
so the need being, like, so for our people watching now, the need being, what would you say the need is at the moment?
Need is really, really high at the moment.
If you was to define what it is?
So the need, I mean, what the National Literacy Trust, I think, is best at, particularly in Birmingham, is engagement with literacy. Because there's obviously a huge amount of work that goes into literacy skills, and there's a big literacy skills gap. But, you know, we do one of the biggest surveys of young people in the country. It's got, you know, 75,000 at the moment young people are filling in these surveys every year, the annual literacy survey. And most recently, it's found things, you know, this year was one of the lowest ever writing engagement years. So in terms of like under 3 in 10 young people are writing for pleasure in their spare time, say that they're doing this. Last year's results were saying, you know, less than 2 in 5 young people are saying they're reading for pleasure in their spare time. And there's, I think, a number of reasons for that we can, you will have experience of as well. But ultimately, there's a need.
Statistically, there's an issue in terms of young people writing.
And the other thing just to say is that this is clearly a place-based issue. There's different parts of the country are affected very, very differently. And that's why I'm here in Birmingham. And we've got 20 literacy hubs in, but it's trying to have this place-based approach to this issue, saying what are the local assets, the local people, the local places, the local heritage that we can use to plug these people into reading writing.
That's the only way it's going to make it matter.
Only way, there's no one size fits all.
That's right. It's very bespoke, depending on area, background, culture.
I mean, people watching this, think about your own relationship with books, you know, and think how personal that is to you. You know, it's not just I like books; it's I like to read this. For sure. And
because I'm sure there's many people watching. I would imagine parents, teachers, community organisations, library staff, perhaps. Lots of different services, I think, where children are at the core of it. It's interesting how you mentioned about statistics and, you know, this many young people, highlights the problem. And, you know, for you, I guess that's part of the call to action. But you want to change that number. Change that, because behind each number is a human being.
Yeah, absolutely.
Similarly with me, getting involved in education and using literacy, poetry, rap as a means to get into reading, writing. I was watching a documentary on the BBC once saying that 1 in 5 children, when they leave primary school, can't read. 1 in 5?
1 in 5,
You line up 5 children and one of them can't read. and that was pre-pandemic.
Wow.
Pre-lockdown.
Yeah.
Pre-impact on major interruption on children's learning.
Yeah.
And social skills. You know, that was before that. So now I can only imagine the need being even greater than. Yeah, but that was the reasons I got into this.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. So moving on. So we mentioned what it is, who you are, what you do, and some highlights. What have been some of the lowlights, would you say, on your journey as the hub?
As the hub? Yeah, it's a good question. I think, I don't know. It's the thing that I want to say is, one of my old bosses at the National Literacy Trust, we used to talk about charity work as a bit like rock climbing, in the sense that
It's a great analogy.
Yeah, it is a good analogy, I think, because you do something, you get a foothold somewhere, and then almost immediately afterwards, you realise all the problems with it. But it's a great point, and then you go up to the next one. You know, you pivot and you keep sort of climbing up. So what I've really enjoyed about the job is creating projects, and every time that I've done them, I've sort of found ways to kind of make them more effective. So, I mean, a good example in Birmingham, we've started this approach where we're using these big campaigns. Just because we work with so many different organizations and they're so diverse, we wanted one kind of rallying thing. You know, we do lots of mini projects as well, bespoke projects to try and, but one big thing every 3 months saying, if you want to get involved, here's what you do. And one of the ones that's been most successful is called Haunted Birmingham. And it's just this idea that people see Birmingham as a city without heritage, without history, wrongly. And as a result, they might, well, there was a London Review of Books article that said Birmingham is a city with no ghosts.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we wanted to challenge that. And so we, you know, so we asked for people to write ghost stories or scary stories set in Birmingham. And we then put them all on this online map. To show all these, say, Birmingham, say it's the city with no ghosts. Look, here it is. It's filled with ghosts. And that worked really well. Lots of people interested in it. But one of the lowlights of that was that as I was going into a lot of settings, some of the young people said, "Oh, scary stories. Can I write about jinn?" Have you heard of jinn?
Yeah, spiritual
spirit thing. It's like Arabic Muslim tradition, and you know, I'd heard the word genie, you know, I had an awareness of it, but I didn't realize how popular it was going to be. So, and what was interesting is that even though a lot of the young people were saying that verbally, we got no young people writing a story that included a jinn. So that made me think in some way, they're getting the sense that they're not allowed to write about this stuff in this campaign. We're not connecting enough with that. So this year, we've brought in, we're doing Haunted Birmingham again, but we've brought in kind of jinn and duppies, which is Afro-Caribbean ghosts. We've brought them in kind of front and center to what we're doing. To try and say, look, we've got worksheets around it and things like that.
Again, it's because of a word. And just helping people understand it. And be familiar with it. I guess that works across time and across cultures. You know, so well done for being able to centralize that.
I guess. But so that's kind of a low light in the sense that it's like realizing that you're missing something. But then, as I say, it's that rock climbing. And I'm sure this year when we sit down and look at Haunted Birmingham again, we'll say, oh, here's the thousands of things that we missed. But each time you get a bit better.
This is it. You either win or you learn.
That's it.
You know, and I think with this campaign that we run to try and help young people. And anything worthwhile doing is not easy.
You're right.
And everyone's climbing a mountain. But at least when you work for yourself and you set yourself a mission, a call to action, this is what I'm going to dedicate myself to now. At least you get to pick which mountain to climb.
Nice.
You know what I mean? So I think that's important.
Absolutely.
Knowing what's important and then trying to make a solution for that. And then, I think that helps to drive you, gets you up, and on a Saturday afternoon to an interview on site. You know what I mean? You know, it's true. You could be doing other things, but this is more important.
No, absolutely, it helps to drive you, and it's just, I think it's trying not to let the fact that you're absolutely going to do something imperfect, particularly in community work, not stop you from doing it. Because as I say, you gotta do it to get that first hand on the rock.
Yeah.
And then yes, you're gonna, you know, work out ways that you could have done better. But just get something out there, get the feedback in from the people you're trying to engage, and adapt.
Brilliant. So on your journey then, you mentioned about, so do you write regularly? Is that part and parcel of what you do still?
I've always done creative writing, lots of different forms. At university, I was really into, it was an amazing theatre community at Cambridge, so was really passionate about writing. Some improv. I was never that good at improv, but I did a lot of comedy sketch writing. That was what I ended up doing a lot of. I ended up in the comedy scene. So I did that all the time. What I loved about it was the collaboration of it. It was so amazing for meeting people. And then after uni, that was actually, I mean, talking about lowlights, that was quite a difficult time because I'd sort of really pursued this idea of helping others, but I'd left my own sort of creativity on the side, unnurtured, and to have gone from such a lively creative community to just kind of working on my professional career made me sad. And so over the years, I've sort of tried to get back to writing more.
Good.
And now I don't really write comedy anymore, but I've actually found that writing about what we're doing, writing about the campaigns we run, and writing sort of academically, I write about poetry, I write, you know, about different academic things that I'm interested in. Brilliant. And that scratches that itch a lot more.
Brilliant. Wow. So you're still repurposing that creative itch? But for a more practical...
Yeah,
man, excellent.
I don't know about more, you know, no writing's more or less practical, I suppose, but...
Right. Well, you're specialised in that academia space.
I guess, it's more focused in a way. Yeah, that's true.
So it's, man, horses for courses, and as you said, we've got to know our strengths, haven't we?
Yeah.
You know, to be effective as a team.
Yeah.
To address the problem.
That's true.
You know, when the mechanics hit the car, when it pulls into the, you know, the Formula One, you know, the pit lane.
Yeah.
Everyone's got their, you know, own specialised bit to do, to make sure that car runs quick time.
We got some great analogies today. We're going
welcome to the analogy corner featuring Kurly and Kyle. Bless. Any tips that you've received on your journey that you might want to share?
I think, I mean, I can give my tip for creativity is that collaboration one for me. Is just getting more people in the room. For me, I have a friend who I argue a lot about this because his writing style is very much I sit alone, I get it done, I grind it out. But I sort of think that in a way he's collaborating with in his own way with everything he's reading. You know, he's getting all these influences. It might not be verbal, but it's all coming in.
That's true.
But I've always been someone that I get my energy from other people. So I would recommend, if you're trying to write, get other people in the room, bounce ideas off them, co-create. Fantastic. And in terms of getting into charity work or community work, I mean, I've already given some good thoughts, I suppose, about making sure that you're connecting with local people, that you are sort of putting stuff out there and then building and putting stuff out there again, and not being afraid to put stuff out there, but also making sure that you're listening when you're doing that to the feedback that comes. And also, if I'm honest, to be blunt, that's all very values-based stuff. But what's really helped me get into the education sector was getting my teaching qualification. You know, and that
requires a series of values as well. You know, commitment, focus, perseverance, determination, motivation, consistency.
But that knowledge that you get, I mean, I wouldn't say I have. You know, I wasn't a teacher for long. I've got nowhere near as much knowledge as some people in the education sector. But just having a bit of an understanding of the context in which you're working has really, really helped me to progress, I guess.
Brilliant. Amazing. So is there anything at the moment that you're working on that you're looking forward to over projects coming up over 2025?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got the one now, so shout out for now, is Haunted Birmingham again.
Haunted Birmingham.
So yeah, if you are a young person older than 9 or an adult, we've got a big adult connection. Yeah, we're looking for people to write ghost stories that are set in Birmingham, or scary stories set in Birmingham. Yeah, and it could be about gin and duppies as well.
So where did I go to that to find out more?
Yeah, so if you, I mean, it's on the Literacy Trust website. So we're Literacy Trust Birmingham. So if you Google or search Literacy Trust Birmingham or Literacy Trust Haunted Birmingham, you'll get the page.
Amazing.
The deadline for stories is 1st of December. So get them in. We're going to have a big event at the Library of Birmingham where people share their stories. We'll put them on the map.
Awesome.
And just, yeah, check in if you're watching this at a later date. Every 3 months, we'll do a big campaign like that where we're asking people to get involved. We've got one around
specifically in Birmingham.
Specifically, but all for Birmingham. Yeah, we don't do anything outside. So it's and that's why it's Haunted Birmingham. You know, it's not just yeah, exactly. All of our campaigns will be really trying to respond to the local area.
Amazing. Wow, Kyle, it's been a fantastic pleasure to have you here today. Thank you so much.
Nice to see
you. All the best on the journey.
Yeah. So Kurly said that he can't let me go without asking for something creative. So I'm not really a poet in the sense that I've written poems over the years for different reasons, but not kind of systematically. But I do have one to share, which I'm quite proud of, which is a poem I wrote. I've been with my partner for 9 years now, long time. But when we first started going out, it was at Christmas time. And I wrote this poem at Christmas when we were apart. And I was just thinking about this new relationship. And it goes, on corners, the couples are walking in twos, chanting hollow, hollows, and not how do you do's. The absence of snow is defrosting their shoes. They're an unsung arrangement of me's and of you's. I hear you in tired piano refrains. With you, I watch shoppers embezzle their brains. I hold you through dreary grey fairy tale lanes. So I'm just going to read you a few of the contributions to Haunted Birmingham last year. And I wrote about these actually for the Midlands Heritage Review. So when I was telling Kurly about some of the academic writing I've been doing, I've done a sort of write-up of all of these that's going to be published in the next few months. But this was a young person. What was amazing about this campaign was that people were writing about places that they really cared about. And you know, that could be something that's traditionally spooky, like the canals of Birmingham, or this one we've got, Khan's Fish Bar. Whilst he was walking down Ladypool Road on a dark, cold winter night, he stumbled upon Khan's Fish Bar, which is, if some of you will know, is on Ladypool Road. I've got all the takeaway ones I'm going to share from here. This one is about Cotteridge. It says, "Where am I?" I question myself. Then I remembered, oh yeah, I'm in Cotteridge for some fish fingers. And finally we've got another Ladypool Road one. Big boss from the chicken shop across the road saw what happened and called the police. Once they arrived, he told them what happened, that they know the history of this place and they didn't want to go in, because once you go in, you never come out. So 3 stories there.